Hello, it is I, Broderick Wallace, on a rainy evening, and I've upgraded my blue hoodie. I went a little bit more upmarket, better quality, thicker, hood's nicer. Just do it. Very appropriate. Just do it. Do it. That works on at least 2 levels. And I just want to say something, and as usual it's probably a little bit weird, a little bit inappropriate, but that's the way it always goes on my channel, and everything should start making sense more and more as we go forward. Session Circle, Bluebell Hill for winter solstice this year, 2022. So I'm aiming for that point. Obviously going to put in a lot of work, and if you're unaware exactly of what that is, I did mention before that I'm going to start a group basically for people who are like really serious about. I don't need the hood. I'm in the van. It's not raining. Sorry. Let's keep it real, right? For people who are really serious about Hermetic meditation. So what's the difference? What's the difference? How do you even begin to tackle this subject without being rude? It is difficult, to be honest, because it's discipline that drives evolution, isn't it? So even though it's an extreme example, if we look at Facebook and Facebook posts and the whole kind of meme thing, it's all scatterbrain, isn't it? You know, it's like having your lunchtime religion, posting pictures of, you know, whatever god and goddess, and I mean, I'm going to try and choose my words carefully here. It's escapism for the most part, and with a lot of cosplay and a kind of very modern identity crisis involved, isn't it? That counts for a lot of what's going on. And in the same way in meditation that you train to fix yourself on a goal, or you know, to your posture, your attitude, you go in and you're imperturbable. Nothing can stop you. That's the way that a spiritual practice should be. Sorry, I'm fine. I need a drink of tea. Got tea tonight. I still can't get a gas bottle, so I'm picking on customers. I'm saying, hey, fill my flask up, or your windows will not be as clean. So if you want me to look after you, you better look after me. It's a two-way thing, right? So the customers that provide me with hot water, their windows now have a kind of, I like to think, a kind of heavenly gleam to them, an extra shine, which is preternatural in quality, and so yeah, I don't know why I've always had this thing over the years that my ability to speak fluctuates. It's a very strange thing, isn't it? Because I feel no fear of speaking, public speaking on the internet. I think it's all the reading that I've been doing, because I read this brings me on to another point. I read the chapter that I wrote on the channel, and there's a wonderful feeling of closure after doing that. A kind of partial closure, because the work will continue along many of the themes highlighted in the channel, but this will go on privately, and but we'll see. It's important not to restrict yourself too much by saying this is the way things are going to be. But there's one thing that we should be sure about, and that is a fixity on the goal of actually achieving something. So it's very difficult, though, I must admit, when you're working physically every day, etc., etc. It does take a lot out of you. So you just get the feel like there's so many things that you need to do. There's so many things that you need to do, and meditation is the art form, which is a discipline which improves every single aspect of your life when you keep it up. So a lot of people have this impression that it's a kind of self-help thing. Oh, it improves your mind and like all that stuff. Yeah, that happens. It's nice, but it obviously goes way beyond that. And it's those extremes that, in particular, obviously the teachings of Franz Bardon, which draw upon the Western esoteric tradition, as well as many aspects from all different traditions. There's a lot of Eastern stuff in there, etc. And the group that I belong to, Seshen, Mr. Fawkes has done an incredible amount of work in structuring this into a training, a form of training with grades, etc., which relates to Bardon's book Initiation into Hermetics. And so obviously I've reached a point where I am able to guide newbies, if you like, and it's a common thing. I've talked about it before, that you don't reveal where you are, but anyone who's above you will probably know, and that's fine, because there's a hierarchy. You tend to look up to these people, and it's all cool. So in terms of guiding people into this discipline, Seshen Circle, Bluebell Hill will become a thing. There will be an internet group that will go out on winter solstice this year. So I just want to give a heads up in case, you never know. I mean, there's under 100 subscribers at the moment. Excuse me. But that will creep up gradually. There may be one person sitting there thinking, yeah, I've really wanted to, I'm fascinated by this subject, and I really want to make a concerted effort, but I'm just confused. I'm confused by all of the information on the internet, some of it contradictory, and this is what makes it's hard to stick to something when there's so much noise going on. There is a beauty in simplicity. So even though I definitely feel that I was guided to this path through divine providence, if you like, through a kind of synchronicity. That will sound awful to anyone who's not kind of in that world, but when you're in this world, it's less dramatic than it sounds, although it's still, no less important. So I've been very lucky in a way that I never had to choose my religious expression, and I never had to choose my spiritual path. You think, well, why are those two things different? It's just kind of the way things turned out. They're not exactly different. I used the word pagan. It never really feels quite right, and there's all sorts of connotations, but that's all. It doesn't matter. So, it happened naturally, and so that's a great thing. And through a series of synchronicities and things linking up and long periods of time in between, don't get me wrong, but eventually it's funny how we are sometimes guided towards something. So I read the signs. I'm supposed to do initiation into Hermetics, and from that point on things become beautifully simple, don't they? Because it's like, it's not like you're in a cult and you have to, this is the most amazing. It's like you don't have to, you're like, I'm taking it seriously that I've been led to this book in ways which are beyond, normal chance. So gave it my best shot a few times, and had some amazing experiences, learnt a lot. But it's tricky when you're, anyone who's gone through that completely on their own, it's exceptional. It's, that's some serious work, that is, and it takes an exceptional person. So I found that my life wasn't set up in a way where that was possible for me to embark upon this book and these teachings completely on my own. I didn't quite understand how that would be achieved. But as fate would have it, those circumstances would come about, because you see, when you're ripe and ready from the point of view that you have the enthusiasm where you want to master something. So like, if we go back in time, I'm going to master the guitar, for one example. It's like, yeah, it was mastered. Unfortunately, through years of window cleaning, and damp weather and that kind of thing, I developed some kind of strange injury, I guess, some sort of weird repetitive strain related condition whereby my guitar playing was faltering, and I couldn't play with ultra precision at speed anymore, which is what I was doing, playing with ultra precision at speed. So I sensed that was, the end was nigh. Hence, I will say this for the first time on this channel, hence the project Eschatology. Literally, the end was nigh. So when one thing ends, a new thing begins. But it took time to come about. So you've got that fire, but you don't. It's a whole world that you need to be in to understand how, I would say that it's a little bit like that parable, like from the Bible, where seeds fall. Like some of them fall on rocky ground, etc. The seeds, they all have that potential. It's a little bit like a seed falling on rocky ground, But then someone coming along and saying, hey, let's give this seed a chance here. And, you know, I'm very grateful for that. So, let's say I really understand how important that social structure and the benefit of having, you know, a teacher either in an extremely direct way, or as the case will be in the circle, as an intermediary. This makes a lot of difference. It's a bit like when you're in a band, you get super productive because there's, you know, perhaps 3 other guys that are relying on you to learn your parts or write new music or get to the studio on time. You know, you find that energy, you become, you know, there's a reason to be productive and to have things in working order. So that's what happens in a, you know, in a meditation group that is based on, you know, that comes from a good place in terms of the teaching. So what happens is that once you're a certain way in, you can extrapolate. So obviously knowing people that have gone through the training is one part of the feeling of that creates comfort in terms of seeing, you know, the results and having faith in the validity of the training, and seeing, you know, one's own progress enables one to extrapolate and feel excited about and drawn towards, you know, further progress. Like, extraordinary things are happening. You know, what would happen if I increased the time that I spend every day, that I became more dedicated? You start falling in love with the idea of what you could be. And I will definitely be very open. In my case, I will say, you know, I wish that I could have found this in my 20s. I was ready then, to be honest. You know, I was hungry, and you know, popping down to your local Waterstones and just, you know, looking for meaning. I mean, that's some amazing stuff. You know, like, you know, you've just these books that you would choose, you know, from the occult, etc. And there's all this stuff that you go through over the years where you try out different things, and it was always the you know, the occult. I sensed that even though there was a lot of bullshit around the edges, there was a core to this. There was an ancient perennial core to this. This was my thing. You know, I could sense you know, that there was a reality to this. And I think you can get to a stage where you're dabbling, where you will have amazing experiences. It's a little bit like there's a particular magician online that says, go out, you know, have an experience, do a Ouija board or take ayahuasca, or so that kind of thing. Like, obviously these kinds of things were happening to me. Like, you're building up an impression that this is real, that this is worth investigating, but there's no discipline. And you're kind of getting blown about by the wind a little bit. It's see, I've learned a crucial difference between what would be described as sorcery and what would be described as high magic. Like, I'd read about this, but it's like, really, this high magic thing, it seems a bit poncy and lofty, doesn't it? But you know, sooner or later you get to a stage where you realise it's a little bit like, I actually am going to make a video very soon on particular changes that happen to the mind in meditation. I'm going to save it for that particular video. But suffice to say, it's a little bit like, in terms of lust and desire, you think that having more and more and more is going to make you happy, and you think that it's cool and it makes you big and impressive, and it's once if you walk upon that path, then it starts to get old quick, or there's a hole it needs filling constantly and it becomes stressful. It's a little bit like that kind of difference, you know. When you become aligned, when you're, you know, pointing in the right direction, a kind of calmness descends. That doesn't sound like fun. It's still there's a lot of adventure to it, don't get me wrong, but like, am I speaking as a middle-aged man here? I'll tell you something, it takes a lot for me to let's just say that analogy with the horses and the reins, like, I have to keep an eye on that, definitely. That's not impressive, by the way. It's a little bit like, you know, that Lord make me holy but not yet. That's only because you think it's going to be something that it's not, or you don't understand. You don't understand that when you get into a disciplined practice, and even with the ups and the downs, and there will be times that you let yourself down, and you do tend to go through these, like, you're going like this, and then you get a blip for a little while. I mean, I had one in the last few days, like, why am I suddenly returning to old? I thought I'd conquered this, like, you know, it happens a lot, but there's an averaging, and over time it's staying, you know, it will point the way that you want it to point more often. It begins to stabilize, so you can again extrapolate on the future. It's like you don't I've thought of a good analogy here. You know, when this idea, I mean, I've said this to people, yeah, you sit in meditation and the idea is not to think, and they're horrified by that, because that's where all their pleasure comes from. It's a little, you imagine, I want entertainment, I want this, I want that. If you were forced somehow to experience that state, what I'm saying is that this wasn't immediate. You would have thought that all the excitement and the you know, the kind of the whole identity thing and all that, that looks like it's more fun. But if you're interested enough, and you're as part of a system where you don't want to let other people down, and you've got an idea of the goal, all these things are moving you in the direction of something that you wouldn't perhaps have done naturally, left to your own devices. This daily practice of stillness. Done properly, it's not long before you get a flavour, a sense of that unending joy. You're, oh my God, this is what they were talking about in these texts, etc. This nothingness that is this, you know, so fulfilling. This sense of eternity in stillness. This, you know, coming out, and this deep sense of satisfaction. And along the way, the journey is both, obviously there's an outward journey, because it's, you know, through the training, it's about pursuing one's goals also in life, and everything that you're coming up against, you know. So there's a lot of adventure going on, but like there's a static journey going on within. And I think a really good example would be, say for instance, I've talked before that my right eye, the vision is terrible. Left eye is not too bad, so you, between the two of them, it's a bit blurry, and it kind of, it hurts a little bit. Like just simply, my vision is something that's always uncomfortable. But when I close my eyes, in particular deep states, I am able to access perfect vision. That's really inspiring to me, you know. That draws me forward. That's something, perfect stillness, perfect vision, gratitude, a sense of calmness as well, when one realizes that we are more than just the body. The body's important. We're rooted in that. It's related to the, you know, all of these systems. You know, the three bodies, if you like, if you want to use that model, which I do. They're all related. They're all important. But when you realise that none of your progress will be lost, that this is a game which is not only open-ended in terms of its potential, but open-ended in terms of its time frame. And we could also say that it's open-ended in terms of its the possibilities for not only inner exploration, but oh, someone sent me a friend request. How lovely. I feel so special. Thank you. Yeah, I've gone past the point. I think my point is made. And you know, one thing that I have struggled with in terms of living on the road in the van is that it's quite easy to put on weight, because cooking is difficult, and in nutrition it's a challenge, you know, especially when you can't get hold of a Calagas bottle for cooking. So I had this bright idea. I'll take up smoking again, because I'll smoke instead of eating, and then once I, you know, achieve the result, I'll drop the smoking, and it'll all be good. Now that would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that I have asthma, and I will tell you something, that when you're smoking consistently for days on end, it is a depressant. It depresses. It certainly has depressed me. So I decided, it's a crazy plan. It could have worked, but no. I'm going to stop. And when you decide that you're going to stop, it stops. Just before I end this particular video session, let's talk a little bit about problems. You know, instead of ending happy, we end like miserable. It's the way it goes. Sorry. I really do understand the frustrations with government, bureaucracy, the system, other people, selfishness, ignorance, arrogance, all of that modern world rubbish of there being too many people and just everything that the world is going through. I've noticed people are behaving more stupidly in daily life. There's so many things. You see, if you get into this frame of mind, you think there's so many things that I could have been or I could have had, or you realise how things are set up to keep the rich rich and the poor poor, and you have to make such an effort to transcend the boundaries of what you were placed into at birth, and having to lose so much, but at the same time find an ultimate treasure which I had to work for. So it's difficult to motivate yourself, in terms of effort, when that resentment builds up. So that's one thing that I wanted to make an awareness of, especially in terms of the chapter that I've written, which I did say that I will provide real information, real occult information, and I have, and I can see. Don't get me wrong, I'm not. This is cool. This is fine. It does prove a point that if one video has 3 views and the others are varying, some have got like about 30 or whatever, just from that one video having 3 views, I know that it hasn't been consistently digested from beginning to end, and that's fine. There's a video with the text. There's no comments on that. What I'm waiting for, and it doesn't matter, it's I don't get me wrong, but what I'm waiting for is for that first person to tell me, I understand what this is about. I understand how this relates to the training. That will be a very special day, because like all things, everything's, it's either very simple or it's very complicated. There's a way of turning it's alchemy. How do you turn, how do you take this rough thing, this rough deal, and how do you transmute that into something whereby you can stand back a little while later and say, I don't want to go back there. It doesn't make it any easier, but this is more valuable than what I could have had. This is more important than what this person said or how life turned out, or even, your own mistakes. And not only that, but what I've encoded within that text is a process whereby we trying to think of the right words. Give me time. Where we see the proof that our efforts have been noticed, and a feedback loop begins to exponentially build in power. So I just set that as a challenge, not expecting anything. I'm really looking forward, if it happens, to the day where someone can say, yes, this is it. This is what you were trying to say. So it may never happen. I realise that, but the challenge is there. Can you extract the real meaning of the text, the real message? But anyway, that's a little bit selfish, but I think it's important to say that. Let's have another tea. Let's have another cup of tea. Right, said Fred and all that. So put that there. So just do it. Takes a lot, doesn't it? It's not as easy. It's not as easy as all that, is it? So yeah, I feel satisfied. I feel satisfied that this is a valid instalment upon the Broderick Wallace channel, and my best wishes to you. Good night and